Hung Chuy, I'm really excited for today, mate, because not only have you built one of Australia's biggest brokerages going towards $1 billion this financial year, mate, you're a refugee who's come to Australia. You're currently 38 years old, and mate, you've built a property portfolio in excess of 20 million. You've got a broking business with 65 staff, an amazing owner-occupier home, which is 2 houses merged into one. And you move, like, mate, we just renewed your garage before. You've got a McLaren, all the cars and toys, and you've created all this material success, which basically the Australian dream. I'm very curious, mate, how does somebody go from being a refugee to achieving so much at such a young age? Welcome to the Both Sides podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jen. So I'm really excited about this podcast, actually. It's really nice to jump on a potty, especially when you know the boys and you've met on a personal level, so you've already connected. So you can really be yourself rather than, sit there and try to figure it out over time. I think all of this stuff obviously is quite material in a sense, but the true values and morals that we bring, I guess, to the business table is, I think, what has allowed our business to grow and get to the level that we're at. Our business has been built around actually helping people and helping people grow. And I think we were chatting before, obviously, the show, and what we actually Josh and I was talking, and I was saying, we're talking about all different business models, and I was saying that wouldn't excite me, right? Because doing what I do, helping people actually build their wealth and come out of the other side, that's exciting. That gets me out of bed every morning. So I think I don't think too much about revenue. I don't think about anything else. I think about doing the right thing, and I guess that kind of just creates, I guess, a bigger and bigger business. People just keep coming. So.
Brother, I'm really curious, mate. Like, I've just read out a phenomenal rap sheet. How does somebody get to achieve these goals having come to Australia as a refugee? Can you take us back to the beginning?
Yeah, so right at the very beginning, if we go back to, I guess, the origins of the family story, I've told this before, so if somebody's heard this, but it's still, I don't know, it could be still quite interesting. But I was actually born in a refugee camp in Thailand. So I came here when I was quite young, so I was only 6 months old, so I didn't really experience the hardships that the rest of the family felt in the refugee camps. My brother was a child when he was at the camp, so he's 5 years older than me. When I asked my brother about the camp, I'm like, how was it, right? And he's like, freaking awesome. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean it's freaking awesome? He goes, yeah, man, play soccer all day, sleep in tents. It's like going camping. It's literally a camp, right? But the journey for my family to get to Australia prior to that was a bit of a struggle. So my family was from Cambodia originally. And my dad, he tried, I don't know if you guys know much about the Cambodian history, but they call it the killing fields. And basically, they wiped out, I think it was 1/3 of their population. And the people that they were wiping out of their population was anyone who was affluent. So if you had a business, you were a doctor, you were educated, the dictator at the time, he was trying to take ultimate power. So if you had any sort of substance about you, you were murdered, basically. And they'll just take you out to the field and slaughter you. So my family gave up all their property, gave up everything, and they ran to the farms to pretend to be farmers, as did a lot of Cambodians back in those days.
Did your family have money back then?
Apparently they did. So we were not super affluent, but our family is actually Chinese background. They migrated from China during the war 5 generations ago and went to Cambodia, went to an even worse war. So, yeah. So he ended up just going from one bad place to another bad place over the generations. And then in Cambodia, as they fled to become farmers, then the military who were taking over then pushed out to the farms eventually, and they pretty much enslaved everyone. So my dad in his prime years, between I think it was 19 and 24 years old, was just literally waking up, picking rice for 16 hours, eating 1 bowl of slop every day for 5 years straight. So he had to learn how to catch birds, find fish, and feed themselves in between. So really horrible existence. Wow. Lost that whole teenage years for himself. Obviously, very hard, man. Saw a lot. Saw his friends die. A lot of family members died. My grandfather, I've been told, he was watching the cows, and then he was put into a ditch and shot because the cows ran free because of a storm one night. Wow. So I don't know my grandfather. Dad. Yeah, my dad's dad. So I don't know my grandfather. Crazy stories from back then. So obviously the family once the war was over, the country was left in ruins. There was like nothing left of the country, and everyone was starving, massive poverty, and they were looking for freedom to get somewhere else. So my dad decided to, they still had a few belongings, decided to pack up and jump on a refugee boat to come to Australia. So when they packed everything up, jumped on the boat, the crazy part about this is he jumped on a boat, and then, you can imagine a refugee boat, right? It's a makeshift boat, and everyone's in the hull, and you're seasick for 100 days or whatever you're going to be, right, to get out to freedom, which they're looking to get to Australia or wherever they could find. When they got out on the boat, I think it was a few days in, they got to the Thai border, and then the Thai border patrol came, and then they found the refugee boat, and then they pulled him in with their tugboat, and they were going to put him in jail, or they didn't know what to do with him. All their jails were full because there was refugees everywhere trying to run away. So instead, the military, they decided to tug that boat out to the middle of the ocean because they had no room left in their jails, and shoot some bullet holes in the hull, and just left them out in the middle ocean. So stuck out at sea for, I think it was, I don't know exact days, but my dad tells me it was like a week.
Were you born then? Or
nah, this is probably 4 years before I was born. Wow. Yeah, my whole family was on that boat, every part of our generation. So they should have been pretty much wiped out. Sat on that boat, and they were fortunate enough to get a bit of rain after day 3 or something. I think they ran out of water. They were just about to die, and then some rain came, and then the boat just kind of just trickled along until it crashed to an island, and then they couldn't get on the island because of the sharp rocks, so they were stuck just kind of hovering with no energy outside the rocks for like 24 hours. From there, they ended up getting somehow off the boat and onto the island, eating papaya, eating fruits, figuring out how to catch some fish, and surviving for a few weeks or something like that. I don't know how long it was. My dad says it was some time before a Vietnamese fishing boat drove past, and then they waved them down, these skinny, castaways just sitting on an island. When the boat grabbed them, they took them to their place, obviously to help them recover. But then the police came very shortly afterwards, and then put them all into jail. So yeah, that's what happened when they tried to escape. And then, crazy enough, I think I get the resilience of my dad, because after that, 2 years later, they went back to the farms, done all the rest of it.
Went back.
And then my dad goes, I'm going to go again.
Wow.
And who's crazy enough to do that again? After that, you should have died. Let's do it again. And then the second time around, he did it again. Guess what? Got to the Thai border, caught by the Thai military again. Oh, fuck. Go on, Dad. When he tells the story, I'm like, what do you mean? I can't believe you've done that twice. You're crazy. You're crazy. He's a hard man. He telling that story, he says it so bluntly, this is what happened. He doesn't have any emotion about it, but he's like, yeah. And the second time I got caught, but this time I was fortunate enough to, the military, they took him to a refugee camp instead of taking them out to sea and just shooting bullets in the hole. And then at the camp, that's where I was born. So, wow. And I think it was 1987 or 88, something around that year. No, 1987. And I think the Australian government was letting in refugees, especially women and children. So I might be the lucky child. We had a 6-month-old. They brought me in. But typically, or what that actually means is it makes me Australian, really, because the only culture I knew, I was 6 months old, right? So very, very much Aussie, pretty much. Yeah, that's the origins of how we got here in the refugee side. Anyway,
where did you come from? So when you guys landed, was it Sydney straight away? Have you always been Sydney?
Yeah. So we ended up in Fairfield. If you guys know where the Fairfield is, and Fairfield's colourful little suburb. I remember when we got here, we were staying with our auntie, and I just remember a lot of us in one house. It was I would say there was, because my cousins, 5 cousins. Auntie, uncle, grandma, and then my family, all in this one house at one point. And then I think my dad ended up landing a job at Sydney Water to cut metal tubes. And then he ended up being able to work in a factory. Couldn't speak English, obviously, so they were labouring all day. And we ended up buying a little 2-bedroom, we're renting 2-bedroom apartment in Fairfield. And I just remember that sleeping in the lounge room and all that stuff. So yeah.
What did you learn as a kid growing up through that, and seeing your parents have to adopt to a new culture, a new country, a new job? What was instilled in you through those early years?
I don't exactly. I think in those early years you saw like there was a bit of hardship in everything,
Yep.
and they were hustling for everything. Like they would get us. They used to sew at night, so like the Asians used to sew, which means like they will get a whole pile of clothes from the big manufacturers, and they'll do all the finishing touches at home. So all of us kids were there helping work as well, from the age of 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're all just in the back of the house, helping them sew, work, do whatever we can to contribute to the family. And because they have that survival instinct, so everything was scarce.
Yep.
There wasn't a single thing that wasn't scarce. When you have a shower, it's 1 minute. When you turn on the light, turn off the light. No single light bulb can be on.
Yep.
So everything was scarce is the way that they think, because they went through that. Like they got one bowl of rice, 16 hours of work a day, and everyone died around that from malnourishment. So they've got that, and I was taught that mindset. So even now, obviously I have plenty now, but I still think of everything as scarce.
Yep.
So when I look at something, I can't help myself but get a
here.
better deal. It's in my DNA. Like I look at, that's what eventually made me a good broker. Like I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but there's a better deal here.
Yeah.
Why aren't we getting this better deal? I haggle everything. I don't know why.
Do you think your parents, mate, when they, pre-farm days, but before they had to sort of liquidate everything and then move to the farm, were they in business? Were they like yourself?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think my mother was quite smart, because I believe my mother and her sister, they were jewelers, and they had a jewelry store inside the city. Yeah, so I didn't get to spend enough time with her, but she unfortunately passed away when I was 9. But I'm told that I'm very much like my mother, but I don't know nothing about her, which is very sad, because as Asians, we don't communicate enough. We don't have enough open language. You're taught to hide things or hold things in, because that's what they did. They went through a lot of trauma, so they never expressed themselves well enough, I find.
Do you think there's a transition there with business owners to having to hold things in, not letting their staff see them weak, or, not letting people see them crack? Do you think there's like a transfer there as well, like with business owners?
I think so. I think I had a lot of that in the early days, but I think nowadays I'm quite open with my team. And I think that's part of my personal growth, rather than just all the typical business owners. But I run my business quite different to the typical business out there. My business is basically, I see it as a family business. Everyone in my team is literally family. So I got brothers, got brother-in-law, but everyone's a friend or family, so it feels like a family run business, and we all trust each other. People are willing to put their hands up to help people who they're technically competing with, because it's almost like everybody's trying to win together. When you get that kind of culture in your business, it's amazing. Like you see everyone that's even coming in new, all the veterans are here to help. It's something I'm very proud of is the culture in my business, for sure.
It's an attraction culture.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And it's scalable. Have you found that trying to maintain such a tight-knit culture, like there's a real estate business called White Fox?
Yeah.
You might have seen those guys.
Yeah,
probably.
100%.
That's another example where they've kept that really tight culture. He's got his brother and family working in the business, and they've scaled to, I think 10 plus offices, but they've managed to keep that tight culture. It's really hard to do. Have you found any pain points going from, just yourself being the founder to 65 plus staff? Like, where have been some of those big pain points for you in trying to maintain that, all in sort of attitude?
Yeah, I think throughout the years, it's one of those, I've always been a person who just tries things, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I've had, believe me, so many failures along the way. There were times when I was broking and I was just taking on way too much volume, and I just didn't have the mechanics to support it, and I was letting people down, and then it just brought everything down. Your morale, you might be making money, but you're depressed as hell because you're literally letting people down. So I went through that process, and then when the market went quiet, that was the time when everyone else was trying to win business. I was actually just trying to build infrastructure. So this time around, I know that the next property cycle is coming. I was well prepared for it. We hired more people than we needed. We brought on more people than the volume that we're actually doing. And it's weird, because I noticed as I kept putting more people, I filled up their diaries somehow. It's so bizarre, right? But yeah, prior to that, when you're chasing business, it's almost like just running a
hamster wheel.
Yeah, the hamster wheel. I can't explain
You
it.
never get off it.
Yeah, you're literally there. I feel
Yeah.
like I was constantly there. I'm only just recently, probably the last 2 years, really feeling like I'm off the hamster wheel.
You off the tools?
I'm still back on. I'm still on the tools.
Because you're back at
Yeah, man. I'm
Off and on.
I'm off and on. I'm like, so whenever I have new recruits, I'm very close to everyone. I'll do joint deals with all my brokers. So I do a lot of the strategy for a lot of the clients. I'm still very much hands-on. Could I walk away from the business and it'll still operate? Yes, absolutely. Are my team at that level where I feel like they're capable to do 90% of what I do? Yes. It's that extra 10%, but it's just that when I'm around, it gives that extra boost. And especially for our high net wealth customers, they always want to talk to me. So I'm always back in that wheel. But I think the way I value my time or where I spend it now, it's much more efficient. And I'm actually happy and I'm enjoying being on the tools at the same time.
What I was going to say, sorry, Hung, what was the journey like from losing your mum at 9 to now being in a position you are now? What transpired in between there to give you the ability to create what you've created?
I think
because I heard there was a bit in between,
mate. It's pretty crazy, man. As a 9-year-old, how do you process this? It's I don't think I fully processed it till today. I'm still processing it, right?
Come do some stuff.
No, I'm gonna go sit in the mountains with you for 10 days.
Come do some
I actually
you got me into it.
Did you do it 10 days?
Best thing I ever did.
No way, you done it.
Best thing I ever did. Wow. I'm going back. Yeah,
I'm coming.
We'll do it together.
All right, I'm committing on this podcast that we're gonna do it together.
You heard it here, folks. He's coming.
No, I actually, when I heard you say that you've done the 10 days, I was like, this will be probably good for me at some point. But I need to slowly build my way. Let me try 1 or 2 days and see if I can do 10.
There's the meditation for 10 days, then there's the ayahuasca.
Yeah, okay.
Life changing.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
okay.
We'll chat off air.
Yeah. But anyway,
so tell me, 9 years old, loses your mum. How did you get from there to here?
It was actually a strange thing because at 9, I don't know, it's a weird thing because my mother, leading up to the age of 9, I was a really academic kid. Her ability...
Not surprised.
Yeah, she was, but academic in the sense of book smart, right? It made me she made me like, I could switch numbers faster than, a 20-year-old when I was at 9.
Wow.
I can't do it now, but because I was doing mathematics literally 4 or 5 hours a day while I was helping the family. I was just like a trained soldier almost up to the age of 9 because that's how my mum was. She was like, you're going to be successful. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. So I know she's got that. I remember all those bits and pieces every day, coming home from school, doing all those things, and straight away homework 3 hours. Boom, every single day as a 9-year-old. like insane amount.
3 hours. Man,
this is the Asian culture because they're like when they come here as migrants, they're taking every chance they can to upgrade. So they want to make sure the kids have a better life, and the only way they know how to is education. So they were pushing the hell out of me. But then when she passed, it was just me, my dad, my brother, And my dad was always working. Like, he worked night shifts. I never saw him. It turned from a world of like somebody on your case 24/7 to then going to all of a sudden, well, now there's literally no support. It's just, I was on my own. I was no longer doing these things. I was actually a vegetarian, crazy enough as well. So during that time, my mother was a vegetarian. So, and then, I just remember when she passed, my dad said to me, here's a McChicken burger. And I'm like...
So night and day.
Yeah, everything just like, it was just flipped on its head on that moment. And I moved houses, changed schools. And then the school I moved to was, all the naughty kids. So I was in the gifted and talented class in this school, like an opportunity class. There's only like 10 kids selected or something like that from the whole area. And I was in that class, and then I moved to a new school, and they put me into a school where they put me in the middle class because they didn't know where to place me. I was 100% on all my marks prior to that. Wow. So I went to that class, and I just remember the first day in that classroom, they done a pop quiz, had all these questions. It was like a maths one, and they had 20 minutes to do it, and I done it in like 1.5 minutes.
That must have been like, who's this guy?
And then I put my hand up, and the teacher's like, yes, do you need something, Hung? I'm like, I'm finished. And she's like, are you? And then she comes over and she like looks at it and she's like, I remember the look on her face, like, I think I enjoyed that look on their face. I was like, oh yeah, I got this. Yeah, but then I met a lot of the naughtier kids there, and then this is where my EQ started kicking in, so you have the IQ side of things, but then when you're growing up around all the rough kids, Housing Commission was next to that school, so you got half housos, half locals. And I'm still friends with all of these guys till today. But we walk different paths in life, obviously. But we started getting up to all sorts of mischief. Hanging around the housing commission communities, lighting fires, riding push bikes everywhere.
Doing what you should.
Yeah, doing what you should be doing as a kid. Then I started learning all these other stuff. But then you met a lot of nasty people along the way there too. So I think it built a lot of judge of character for me.
Did it change much for you, Hung? Like being in that different environment, did it knock you off track? Did you stay on track?
Oh, it absolutely knocked me off track.
Yeah.
I no longer cared about school.
Yep.
No longer cared about anything. I just wanted to go have fun.
Yep.
Absolutely threw me off track. But at the same time, I feel like it was a blessing in disguise to be knocked off track, because what happens if that happened late in my life? What happens if, so I got to see all of these things that I never would have seen if I was underneath an incubator, underneath my mother. I would have become probably a doctor through that path and just on this straight and narrow.
Yep.
I wouldn't have seen all these wonderful things in
Real
life.
life.
Yeah, real life.
Yeah.
I would have missed out on real life.
Yep.
And I've seen it in like family members of mine that stayed on that path, and then they have no sense of people. So it's almost they're lacking that emotional side of things. Everything's a transaction, everything's mathematical, numerical. Whereas I feel like that taught me so much about the human emotion.
That's something that I've observed with you that stands out, is your ability to hold a room and network and be likable to each person, like a chameleon does. They can, we're at the racetrack, you can blend with this guy, that guy, the developer, the broker, the buyer's agent, the real estate agent. Like, you've really got an art for that.
Yeah, I think it's I've always been social, so I get to know people from all walks of life, right? And I think because of the beginning I come from, I never discount anyone. I would look at everyone at same value until I get to know them as a human. You could be the richest guy in the room, and I could absolutely hate you, which happens to me all the time. Especially on the car meets sometimes. Actually, you meet some wankers. not always, but there's really good people.
Especially the Lambo driver.
Nah, not the Lambo guy.
So, did you end up finishing school?
Yeah, so I ended up going obviously through high school life. I was a really naughty kid up until about year 9. Jig school a lot. My daughter's listening to this, which she probably is. But up until the age of like 14, I missed out like 1/3 of the year every single year. I literally jig school every day. But then I was the kid that showed up to the tests and still scored 90 to 100%. So I was fortunately quite gifted in the mind. Like, I was academically smart, and I built the EQ over that time, which was the unfortunate but fortunate series of events I find that allowed me to kind of enable both. And then I think it was in year 11 or something. Actually year 9. I got beaten up in year 9. So my own fault, being a douchebag, lost the fight, got beaten up, and I think that woke me up. Like, it was a switch. I all of a sudden stopped jigging school. I started going to school 100% attendance from that day onwards.
Wow.
Yeah, so sometimes you need someone to knock you out to
knock you back in.
Yeah, knock you back in. Yeah.
How important is EQ versus IQ? Because it's
Good question.
Yeah, in the people business, what do you reckon?
Oh wait, EQ 100% for the people business. Yeah. The IQ stuff, like, if you're generally a bit smart, like, you can teach all the rest of the stuff, right? Yeah. If you're gonna I guess put your time and energy to something, you're gonna get a result, right? The EQ stuff, it's just, you can't really teach it. You've got to go out there and make mistakes and meet some douchebags and do all the rest of it, right?
Cop a few knocks.
Yeah, that's it. Cop a few knocks.
A lot of these audience are agents, obviously.
Yeah.
And EQ is a big part of their arsenal.
Yeah.
It's hard to teach EQ. What do you think are some tips or tricks that agents can do to just improve that EQ side, that personal side?
Yeah, I think getting out of your comfort zone, right? Doing things that you're not used to doing. I hear, I haven't done it, but a lot of people say go to Toastmasters. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have done it. Yeah, but that once a week, I have staff of mine who. And other people, friends who've, I remember them as a shell of themselves, and then going to things like that, coming back out. Yeah, I guess just pushing yourself to, do stuff that's uncomfortable, really. That's what I've always found grows me. Every time you're in a place where it's a little bit uncomfortable,
you should go towards it. You should go towards it, I reckon. That feeling. If it makes you a bit scared, it's probably the signal that you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Public speaking. I know when I did ARIC recently, it was like, if you'd asked me, I was like you, man, I skipped school probably about the same amount of time. Kids don't listen.
Yeah, that's it.
But it was like, public speaking for me was, I'd rather be crucified. I just hated it.
Yeah.
But that was the thing I'd sort of worked on the most, and it probably gave me the most growth. It was because it was the most uncomfortable. It's like door knocking, for agents that aren't out there doing the work or making the calls. It's like, you're not going to die from a no. Just get out, make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to get some good growth out of it.
A lot of guys have to break out of that anxiety, I guess. It's and I have it too when it comes to public speaking. I messed up a few times. I've done a best man speech once, and I was and
it's probably the beers beforehand, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. I actually was, and I regretted drinking before it. Yeah, it was the worst thing I could possibly done. I just kept drinking to try and make it easier, but when I got up there, I've got nothing to talk about.
So once you copped the knocks, then did you finish school?
Yeah, so high school obviously finished. Ended up getting a decent mark, like in the 90s. Don't ask me how. Ended up 90s, accounting and finance major. Went to Macquarie Uni. But as I finished school, I was working at McDonald's actually at the time. But prior to that, when I was 16, I was trying to find ways to make money. Even before that, I used to like look at any way to make money, right? So it would be Pokémon cards, Pogs. I'd buy and sell things on Trading Post. And I was saving a pretty substantial sum because of that scarcity mentality. And we have a thing called Chinese New Year. So people give you money in Chinese New Year. So I was saving all of that. I had a lot of money as a teenager because I was just saving everything and just hustling my way to save more money. And then worked my first job at my cousin's fruit shop. And I was like 12, picking up watermelons, putting them into the crates. And I think it was like 9 months. As soon as that day came, boom, applied for jobs everywhere. Worked at Pizza Hut for like 6 months. Went from there to McDonald's, upgraded. I remember my first pay, $4.95 an hour, something like that. And then I got my 30-cent increase for being a crew trainer at McDonald's. I actually worked there till I was 18 because it was a good source of money or income because they gave me the Saturday and Sunday shift. And they gave me that shift because instead of employing 2 people on double time and time and a half, they would put me on because I was the fastest, most efficient. I could run the whole floor, but I'd come in there hungover every single time when I was 18. So it was the worst. But in between, I ran under 18s nightclubs as well. So that's where...
Wow. Yeah. Is there poker in there somewhere?
Yeah, poker comes after that. Yeah. So the under 18s nightclubs
Tell us about poker.
So when I was 18 and I was working at McDonald's, I needed to find more money. And I was in uni and I was like, I hate Maccas. I was over this. I was there for like 3 years. So... my friend told me to go to a pub with him and play poker. It was free poker. And I was like, I don't know how to play poker. He's like, don't worry, they'll teach you when you get there. I got there, and obviously with the mathematical brain I have, and I was always good at cards. And
Did you count them?
At one point I could to an extent. Like there's a formula around it, but I haven't done it in a long, long time. So you could work, if you have a singular deck, you could count cards, to an extent. But yeah, and I just tried to play, and I absolutely loved it. Like the game was, it was my everything at the time because it was a EQ game. You got to obviously study your counterparts on the table. Mathematical game because it's all percentages and odds. And then there's a betting game, so the gambling element of it I loved. All right, so you put the 3 combined, and you'll notice the most skilled players over time. They're not going to get lucky every time, but if they play enough poker, they're going to win 9 out of 10 times against you. So I found that was really good at it and got really good quick. And after about playing at those pubs and RSLs for a month, my friend goes, why don't we apply for a job with them? So I applied for a job with them and went for the interview. And the person hiring me, a good friend of mine still too, he's like, oh mate, you're that kid from Harvard? You've got like... I just remember that saying when they come into the interview. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, like, you got like a 90-something, UAI, you got this, you had this like tournament of champions, all this stuff, the mindset pieces that you done in high school. And then got hired, and I remember doing the job interview with their operations manager, and he was like, it was a weird interview because he was just interviewing me. It wasn't like anything else, just kind of, it was like a stare in the eyes interview, and then he's like, oh yeah, you've got the job, can you start next week? I'm like, all right, well, mate, quit Macca's, go here next week. I'm like, but how much do you guys pay? I didn't know what they paid, and it was like, oh, well, you do a shift, you run one tournament, it's $150 a tournament, but you have to be a subcontractor, so this is my first learnings of accounting, of being self-employed. I was like, okay, and I've done my maths quick. I'm like, okay, well, how many hours is a tournament? He's like, oh, it's about 3 hours. I'm like, wait a second, I was on $8.95 an hour, and all of a sudden that's $50 an hour.
$40 uplift.
Mate, it was huge. I'm like, how many shifts can you sign me on for? I was doing 16, 17 shifts a week.
Yeah,
and
wow.
studying full time at uni, I didn't give a shit. I was, and then at night I was going to the casino to play professionally.
Wow,
So,
really?
Yeah, so we'd go to the casino to go fishing, which is what they call fishing. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday is always the best nights because a lot of drunk people out there.
Yeah, just take them.
Yeah, you just take them. But sometimes the drunk people get lucky. But 9 out of 10 times, you're going to walk away with 3, 4, 5 times your stack.
Wow.
So I actually won enough money between that and working to then, after 9 months of being there, to buy a franchise in that Australian Poker League business.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was at 19, bought the franchise. It was like a rundown franchise. Turned into the second biggest franchise in the country at the time. So 19-year-old kid making a mozza amount of money. So
What do you reckon you'd be making back then?
I reckon I was on about 300 or 400 grand as a 19-year-old. Yeah, people didn't realize how much money. They're like, "Oh, that's the poker guy." Because I used to be scruffy with my jeans and stuff. I was making a lot of quid. Like it was actually,
Wow.
yeah. Guess where the money was going? But
Cars.
nah, going to the bar.
Yeah. I was going to say, straight back over the bar.
Yeah, that's literally what was happening with a lot of the money, mate, at that age. But I was saving. I still had the
Which is
scarcity
normal for a
mindset.
19-year-old,
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
No, I was still saving a lot of that money. So I was, stashing. Didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I knew there was something bigger coming for
Pre-uni,
me.
or you in uni now?
I was still in uni full time, running that
Making
business.
19, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow,
I was just working 24/7. Like it
How long
wasn't.
did you do that for? Poker.
Poker went for about 5 years. Yeah. At one point we had, I think 26 games running or something like that, and we had I can't remember how many staff, maybe 9 staff.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a full-fledged operation.
Yeah.
I think the person who bought the franchise with me actually was the guy who hired me. That was looking me up and down.
Yeah,
We
right.
became business partners in that, which was amazing. So. And became friends over the years, and then eventually I sold the business back to him. But
How come you sold? Like, what if you're making that type of money?
it was coming down, like the clientele, everything about the business. I didn't enjoy it no more. So after 4 or 5 years, I think I had enough of seeing the same crap. I started getting a bit like over it because I was, when you overwork something and you've done it way too much. I feel like there's a 4 or 5 year rule for people. Like every 4 or 5 years, you need to change something.
Freshen up.
Yeah. And I knew that wasn't my forever career, not to keep up running these poker tournaments. I had this brain and these abilities for a reason, and I hated accounting. Like I studied accounting, but I hated accounting.
What did you hate about it?
I think it's just the fact that it was constantly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like a rinse and repeat. Maybe I like a bit of chaos in my life, but I need to solve problems, I think.
Yep.
And maybe because from the accounting experience I saw, they weren't really solving problems. They're just seeing small business, let's save a few grand in tax. It wasn't I don't know, it wasn't making my brain feel
Stimulated.
You
Yeah,
don't strike me
stimulated.
as an accountant, you don't strike me as the accountant type.
It wasn't stimulating me, and I was and then what happened was then I found I was running poker tournaments actually, and because I was doing night shifts during the daytime, I'd be watching daytime television, like the morning show and stuff like that, and a bloke popped on with a bunch of tradies and stuff, and going, "We are now mortgage brokers," and then I was like, "Oh, what's that?" I didn't even know what a mortgage broker does. I was just watching, I remember Sunrise or something like that, and this guy was fogging off mortgage broking franchises.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, and then I dialed the number, and I go, "I've got to get a meeting with this guy." And I remember the meeting. This bloke took me to Hyde Park Sheraton, and then went to the president's suite or whatever that thing was, and then he had this secretary. She was like, looked like the Victoria's Secret model. It felt so staged. It was just like the most staged thing in the world. And my gut was telling me bad things, right? But I was desperate to get involved in this, and I think he said, "Oh, look, the franchise is 70 grand to get in." And I thought I got a good deal. I'm like, "Oh, I'm very smart. Look at all these credentials. I've turned this business. I was selling myself." And I was like, "Oh, can you do a deal at like maybe 20 grand to get me in, with like maybe a 20 grand loan or something like that?" And then somehow we settled at like 30,000 or something like that. And he goes up front, no loan, no nothing. So I bought a franchise. I think it was 30,000, something around there. And then when I got into the franchise, done my 7-day Cert 4 to become a mortgage broker back then.
wow.
I remember doing it in Fortitude Valley, and going out every night and doing that. And then I remember, then once I've had my franchise, I had the franchise in the Liverpool area, and I started trying to sign on clients. Worst mortgage broker in the world. Had no idea what I was doing. trying to get support from them. They weren't returning my calls. It was like they were just basically taking the franchise fee and running.
Wow.
Then, so I bought into a terrible scheme. If that didn't happen, but it would have opened my eyes to the way the business model of the mortgage broker and I guess the value proposition of the mortgage broker. I spent 2 years, maybe wrote 9 loans in 2 years, and they were just friends of mine. And then I realized, mate, I don't know what I'm doing. But at that point, I was still running poker tournaments, so I had cash flow, and I was running nightclubs as well as another business.
Yeah, wow.
So I had cash flow from 2 other businesses that was allowing me to stay afloat while I was doing this. And then I landed a job, and I was like, I have to go and learn. So one of my poker players is like, I was telling him about how terrible it was. He goes, why don't you come work for us at a big 4 bank? I'm like, do you have any good roles? He's like, yeah, I've got a role as the business banking manager. You do business lending, residential lending. I'm like, that's perfect. And he's like, just build a career here with us, and I'm sure you'll love it. It seemed like you're passionate about this. I'm like, I really want to get into lending. Knew nothing about it. I wrote 9 loans by off a handkerchief, trying to fluke it, right? So that ended up landing me in a big 4 bank. I applied for that job, and then they rejected me for that job.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they rejected me. But then the guy goes, oh, they don't run, because the regional manager had to come in. He goes, why don't you take the job as a personal banker? You'll take the front desk, and you greet all the inquiries, and you sell bank accounts and loans, credit card loans. So imagine being a guy earning 300-400 grand to go into
Your front desk.
your front desk, 49,000 per annum, greeting. I had no pride. I didn't care.
That's great.
I just jumped in there. Yeah, give it to me.
Perfect attitude.
Yeah, let me move up. Let me learn quickly. But I'd love to move fast. So I think 3 months got promoted. 3 months got promoted. 6 months got promoted, and ended up finally in that role that I applied for. And then when I got into that role, I'm like, this role's shit.
Well, can I ask you, man, as you go just on that, because you knew you were bright and you knew you backed yourself, is that why you were happy to just go from master back to apprentice and then climb the ranks again? Is it because you knew you could climb quickly?
Yeah.
Is that where the confidence came from, do you think?
I think, I knew my inner ability, and I knew that at some point I'm going to grow from here and eventually become a broker again. I wanted to become a broker, but if my career took off in the bank, I would have stayed in the bank potentially. I'm actually glad that I didn't take off in the bank, because I'd probably still be there now.
Yep.
And then it just so happened when I was in that business banking role, I ended up, a broker came into the office, and they were looking for I was looking after their personal accounts. And then they were like, oh, do you want to become a broker? I'm like, I'd love to, but I need a good mentor. I've been asking, and during that time, that 2 years I was at the bank, I was looking after a lot of brokers for their personal stuff. And I reached out to so many of these top 100 brokers to see if anyone would take me on as an apprentice. And I'm not sure if it's a matter of them or it was me. I think maybe they could see that I was too hungry. So nobody really wanted to take me on.
Create competition.
Yeah, correct. So I feel like that was the thing. But yeah, so I ended up meeting a Yellow Brick Road franchise, which was next to my office. And then they took me on as a contractor, and taught me the ropes. So that franchise, the guy who owned it, then at some point sold the franchise or half the franchise to me. Eventually the whole franchise to me, and then eventually went to do 2 different businesses, and then now we're back together again. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Because you built the Yellow Brick Road was it the number 1 Yellow Brick Road franchise in the country?
Yeah, so
correct?
we moved up to that rank over after year 2 or 3, we became the top franchise, and top lending franchise anyway for 3 consecutive years after that. But yeah, it just went from strength to strength after that. Once I had a bit of a mentor, somebody to give me a bit of guidance around what needs to be done and do it the right way, it just seemed to keep exploding.
Did you fall in love with it at that point? Is that when you're like, I love it? Like, obviously you were good at business, but did you fall in love with that type of business? Did the vision become clear for strategic brokers?
I don't think it became clear then. I think at that point in time, I had a young child, and financially I had to look after my family, right? So to be very open and honest, I was chasing money.
How old were you at the time when you had your first child?
I was 23.
Wow.
Yeah, so being 23 and Cheryl was 19 at the time, obviously trying to raise a child was going to be challenging. We needed to find money, but not saying that it was purely about money. I actually loved what I was doing too, which added so much more value, right? Because I loved that I was helping people get into their homes. I was loving, after they move into their house, seeing all of the wonderful things. I wasn't fully about the wealth creation yet because I didn't fully understand it yet.
Yep.
You know, and then I started buying properties, and that's where it all started to click and all come together. And I'm actually really helping people now. And as the results started proving themselves, I think it's when the results start presenting, that's when you can look back and reflect and go, well, what did I do right here and what did I do wrong? And I think after 15 years in the game now, I've seen everything that went right, everything that went wrong, who's been doing it right the whole time, who's actually honest. You know, that's the core of it is the honesty that I thrive on. The people that I work with or deal with, I need them to be honest with the customers as well. They got to be genuinely trying to help. Otherwise, I'd scrap them within the first transaction.
What would you say to people that are, aspiring brokers, agents, whatever? Piece of advice for people that are right back to put yourself back at that front desk. What's the best piece of advice you'd give them? Would it be just start?
Yeah, I think be curious, right? Like never stop learning is the biggest part of that. I found that the most successful people, like we were talking about how you guys caught up with Sam Gordon, and I was saying that guy's probably the most curious guy in the world. He'll ask you some really good questions and you'll be like, oh, yeah, he's learning. He's on. Yeah, he's constantly learning. And like we all are, we're always learning, right? And don't be afraid to ask questions. I know that it's very stereotypical to say, there's no such thing as a dumb question, but really there isn't, right? You're just trying to learn. So
you're just stopping yourself, right? Like if you don't ask it, how do you know?
Man, I'm really impressed. Like when I think of strategic brokers and yourself, like I think of someone that has the ability to handle the hard stuff, whether it be doing loans with trust structures involved, self-employed, businesses, real estate agent. Like when I refer my clients to you and Jeff, it's because I want to get my investors or people that have your not typical vanilla mum and dad loans. I'm sure you guys do that well, but when I think of strategic, I think of that. How did you get from going to Yellow Brick Road, basically knowing nothing, to be able to tackle the hard stuff and build your own wealth?
Yeah, so I think it's purely on my own experiences, right? So our formula, or what do we call it, the Da Vinci Code to our business, what makes us thrive and why people trust us is because I've been through all of it. I've bought good properties, I've bought bad properties, I've developed properties, I've had failed developments, I bought a dumb development. I've done everything. Like I literally don't stop dealing with property. So I think the value proposition is that when customers come to us and they're a little bit lost, that we at least can show them different outcomes that have happened in the past, right? And sometimes people dangle these shiny lights at people and they look at it and they go, well, I should jump in that. Development is a big one with that stuff, right? Everybody wants to make a quick buck. Everyone wants to make this explosive money that will change your life. But the truth is if a developer is hitting you up for money, they're struggling to see like that they're going to make the full fortune out of it, right? They want to de-risk themselves out of the deal. So I get a lot of that inquiry, but overall, I think it's because we've built these strategies for ourselves. Every one of my brokers are investors themselves. So what we're doing with customers, we're doing for ourselves constantly. So that's what the value proposition is from our business, is that we're constantly buying. And I'm pretty open with this. In the last 12 months, I personally bought I just pulled out a contract yesterday. I've bought 10 houses in the last 12 months personally. So the portfolio keeps growing and I'm going to continue to buy forever, really.
And you got that development in Greystanes, don't you?
Yeah, so we've got a development. I think it's about 16. It depends how much they let me cut up the back lot, but it's 2 houses turned into 16 houses in Sydney. We sold the first 6 lots or 5 lots we've sold. We kept one for now as vacant land, and we're doing a second subdivision at the back there. That was just a good deal that presented, and I don't jump at development deals. I only jump at it if it's showing really, really good numbers and it creates a product that's actually valuable to the community. Where I made it wrong in the past is I bought a development with a whole bunch of a big syndicate and they were going to build units in an area where there's no units. And then I looked at it and I go, mate, that was the worst idea ever. The developer went bankrupt and lost a bit of money. And that was a good lesson to be learned. But, I share that as an experience. So when people ask me that question, I'll go like, when you're developing, what are you actually trying to sell? And who's going to buy that product? People miss that I know
Key
it's,
piece.
yeah, it's such a clear link
Yeah.
to everything, right? But all they're looking at is the shiny numbers in the feasibility. So, yeah, that's just the warning signs I guess I can share with people around the development side.
It's funny you said, everyone wants a quick buck in developing. There's nothing quick about it.
No, mate, nothing.
And sometimes no buck.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Mate, I've seen some guys go for 4 years and no buck.
Yeah,
if anything,
minus
even
buck.
lose money.
Yeah.
Oh mate, and the time, that energy,
And the grey hairs, man.
our subdivision, my business partner, he sat at council for 2 days, giving them free coffees, buying them lunches, just trying
to butter them up.
Yeah, trying to butter them up, just so they can look at our transaction
Yeah,
now to speed up the process, because
Yeah,
we're paying a private lender
Yep.
in excess of 42,000 interest per month
Yeah.
while we're waiting for this to get approved. So, you're going. When you actually deep dive, not everyone's willing to take those risks. It's heavy.
You've got to have a big risk appetite.
Yeah, and you're putting all of your work capital back into there, especially if you're a high earner, right? It makes sense for some people, but if you're not, if you're not accustomed to the risks, and you don't have a big bankroll behind you, right? Don't get into
Cut you
it.
out quick.
Yeah.
What- I was just going to say, sorry, how important is it to make that information like digestible to your clients? Because it's kind of a dark art to people that like Dan refers you to, I'm sure mum and dad investors and probably more strategic investors. But for just like your mum and dad that are trying to just grow a bit of a portfolio, maybe Dan's found them something, they get swung to you. Like, how important is it in your role, in your culture, is to make that information understandable and digestible to people? So if they are looking at, say, a development opportunity or a complex structure, trust structure for, for their wealth creation, like how important is that educational piece to make sure that people actually get it? Because I know you can walk into some of these meetings if you're a bit uneducated in the field and walk out thinking, I'm actually a bit more confused than when I walked in.
Yeah, no, I don't. So you've triggered something in my thought process, because I thought about this a while ago, and I was trying to figure out what it was in our business and why it's become so successful over the years. I guess is that we make the hard things simple.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing that we do. We don't complicate it. We don't tell you this is why you're doing this for these reasons. People who are complicating are usually trying to hide something, right? Yeah. Because they're just paid over here. Yeah, they're just trying to make some money and close the deal or whatever they're going to do. We don't actually like doing deals unless the client fully understands what they're committing to, right? We're going to buy a property in Melbourne, for instance, and let's look at the cash flow. I've even done a couple of reels recently to talk about the negative cash flow. Do I say it's a bad investment? No, because I feel like the capital growth will outperform it. But are you willing to absorb an 800 grand transaction, 30 grand out of your pocket every year in cash flow before tax? So, we talk about these quick calculations. It doesn't take me long to calculate it. That's the fortunate thing. And most of my team, it would take me 1 minute. I'll go, look, this is what it's going to probably cost you per year. Are you comfortable with that? And have you made the best moves to make that the most efficient? So things like debt recycling it, which means that you're paying down debt, reborrowing it as a tax deductible debt. There's things like are you putting in the right structures and what for? Some people might say to me they only want to buy 1 or 2 properties, so why do you need a trust? So some people might say I want to buy 10 properties. I'm like, well, we got to figure out what structures we're going to use and how we're going to build a strategy to be able to get these trusts to a level where they can pay for themselves, so then we can keep buying more properties in either new trusts or in your individual name. So there's so many different ways to skin a cat, but not everyone's different, right? Not everyone's the same, sorry.
How important is it for people to have their A team? Like we're talking about Sammy G off air. He's been with the same broker I think forever. But how important is it for people that because I think everybody can watch a reel and think they're an expert. I understand loans or whatever, and they go out and buy a few investments, but clearly the success of your business, there is so much value in having people that can break this down for you. Whether if you're trying to do it yourself, you might buy 1 a year, but actually getting an A team in your corner that can show you, different structures and ways to turn that into 3 a year, like talk to us about like the value of actually having people in your corner that actually get it, that actually want to help you grow and that have done it. Like, because I know a lot of people don't engage, they just think they can do it themselves and probably cost themselves time and money.
I have people in my own court. So I use buyer's agents, for instance, right? Because I'm time poor, I don't know these areas that I'm buying in. I know the areas off Google Maps, but that's about as far as I go, right? But I need somebody in my corner who knows the market, knows those areas, knows the agents. I bought a fair few properties myself, and I remember when I was trying to target one specific area last year, I bought 4 properties in that area, right? it took me 3.5 months to get to know the agents before I started seeing any off-market opportunity. Before they even got to know me, they knew that I was a serious contender. After I bought the first one, the 3 other ones came quickly. It took me 3 months to get to the first one, and I realized. Then I looked back at the time and reflected how much I spent there. I was like, God, yeah, I should have just went to work. Yeah. That's what I came to that realization after that. I was like, I should have just went to work. I would have made that money back, like very much easily. And obviously, not everyone's on the same earning ability. So you got to measure your time versus opportunity. So if you don't have the ability to do that at that point in time, even then, still. Like, it's actually a costly mistake to not use a professional like Daniel, so you need someone 100%. In your corner. But the A team, 100%. Once you figured it out and you figured out that formula and the people, like the broker, the accountant, maybe a financial planner, but they're just going to tell you how to do things a compliant way. Maybe, I'm not a big believer in financial planning unless you have a massive asset base, and when you have a very 100%. Complex one, or I find that what a financial planner can tell you, you can self-educate, right? You just need somebody to be able to pull off the transaction for you in the background, if it's a self-managed super fund or whatever it is. So it just depends on who you trust, and obviously the trust part is hard to build, right? Listening to poddies like this is where you actually start building trust with a lot of people, because you can actually listen to them 4 or 5 times, and by the 5th time you either call bullshit or they're doing the right thing.
You learn. Yeah, it's honest. You can't hide.
Yeah.
Hung, I know you've got, I think it was like 100 or 150 of your clients are actually agents. Probably more. I remember. I don't know the actual count. Yeah, but you have like a large amount of your clients are actually agents themselves, and a lot of agents have either commission-based income where there's irregularity. So they're getting maybe a 40 grand check here. This week they might get nothing. So it's harder for them at times to predict income when it comes to servicing. What's been your experience with the self-employed broker or agent that has unpredictable income to take on debt and then start investing in property? That's
a great question. So I'll start with how did I end up with a lot of agents as my clients. That's probably a funny story, because when you start mortgage broking, your first point of contact is go hustle all the real estate agents, because they're going to give you some leads. I used to stand at open houses like, hello, I'm a mortgage broker. I've done all that stuff back in the days, walking around the eastern suburbs trying to sell myself. I've probably got like 1 or 2 clients off the back end of open houses. But I was meeting a lot of real estate agents, and obviously my skill sets got better and better, and I started learning how to invest and build wealth. A lot of agents started turning to me and saying, hey man, what am I doing? Like, I'm making all of this money, but I'm just bloody shitting it on drinks, cars, watches, Porsches. Porsches can go up, so I'm okay with the Porsches. Don't buy Lambos now. But no, so they were just blowing all their money, making shitloads of money and blowing it all. And I noticed a trend. It was a very common trend with agents, and I started teaching a lot of them about their own money and how to get into property, how they can build portfolios. And then it was a bit of a trigger. And then so every agent I catch up with, I don't talk to them no longer about them giving me leads. I talk to them about how I can help them financially and how I can build their futures. So that became a bit of I think I've done a couple of big agents at one point, and then they were like, mate, what you've taught me is amazing. And if I go back to where I first had that conversation till today, it's millions and millions of dollars in wealth difference by teaching them how to build out these portfolios whilst they're wanting to buy their own occupier. We might buy some properties in a trust, try to get that investment portfolio running really well, sell a few properties, put that into their prime principal place. So it's a very long game, but we're just watching it together. And as we build those relationships out, I get a good understanding of what makes them tick. And when I figure out what makes them tick, we figure out how to make that work with their cash flow. So you can still go to Europe, you can buy your Lambo, do all that stuff. But as long as we keep pumping these investments and you keep making money, then we can keep upping your game at the same time. So I think, so I guess with the commissions and everything else being obviously quite buoyant, what we always do is try to plan ahead. We look at how your earnings, try to look at where you're selling and maybe forecast what the market's looking like. Because property is a slow game in the space where when it runs up, you can see it running and it explodes. And then when it slows down, it's like a trickle slow effect. So you can kind of forecast to some extent on where the market's heading in your market. And then what we do is we try to plan ahead, build buffers, make sure that the agents have enough to fall back on if there's downturn. And that's one problem that I notice with a lot of agents, because they're big personalities. They want to jump into every development deal. They want to buy this. I spoke to one of the guys in the other team who said we're going to buy 5 of these off the plan apartments in the eastern suburbs, whatever it is. And then you've got to figure out how to commit to that. And then, you create a lot of chaos. But I feel like I can become the center post to a lot of them, where they come back to me and go, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And I go, "Yeah, look, this is all the things that will happen on that transaction, and you make a decision."
How regular? What are your pulse check touch points with these agents? Like, are you guys catching up quarterly? Like these guys that are on your books, are you half yearly, or is it just sort of as per growth? Like what does the relationship look like between a strategic broker and an agent?
Yeah, for me with a lot of the agents, I actually, for some bizarre reason, I always get along with agents. Must be the energy.
It's a lot of ADD, man.
Yeah, we've all got the ADHD. We've got a few problems ourselves, wired a bit different. So I tend to get along with agents really well. I tend to become just buddies with them more. Even before you guys came, I actually had an agent from the Central Coast. I'm doing his deal. Very, very good friend of mine. One of the top agents in one of the suburbs there. He's a very different agent, actually. Like, he's not the typical agent that's obviously like big energy. He's got ADHD for sure, but he's quite inversion. But his philosophy is just treating people well, right? Which is obviously the best philosophy in the agency space. And he's just very honest and very, very nice with people in general. And when people are buying off him, they end up selling from him. That's how he ended up becoming a really good agent, right? So I just become bros or sisters, whichever way it is. I just become friends with them, and I just want to help them because they're a mate. That's what ends up happening. I know it sounds too simple, but
it's true, man. What do you reckon what's the number one trait in the best agents that you see that people can learn from?
I think the ability to, I guess, connect with people, and really earn their trust, that they're going to do everything in their power to help them in their situation. I noticed that as the most common trend. And the ones that are really passionate about helping people are the ones that will win. The agents that I see who are just counting, like you hear them talking about commission, talking about money, they might sell 1 or 2 properties here and there. But the ones that constantly keep winning, you'll notice they have that same common trait, that it's actually a care factor.
100%. Well, and what do you think is the number one worst trait?
Oh yeah, that money grab. Yeah, like running
commission
around.
breath.
Yeah, commission breath. Yeah, like running around just say, hey, that was a 50 grand transaction. That's a new Rolex.
Yeah. Is the same the case in broking?
In broking, look, there's what we call the banker mentality. Like when we were working back in the banks, they were transactional. They're just trying to close it out. They're trying to cross properties, and because in the banking sector, right, they're taught to, I guess, just the way that their bonus structures worked was all about just settling the transaction. They don't get paid trail like brokers. Brokers get paid trail, which means you got to look after this person. Because if you don't look after them and you just close the transaction, they're going to go elsewhere and you're going to clawed back. You lose the client. I'm very proud in my business that when people come on, it's very rare that we lose them. They literally become almost a client for life, and that's part of our business model. We don't want to, it's not a one-shot wonder. We want to buy your house, build a few investment properties, build a few more, sell a few. And then all of a sudden you're in your 40s and able to retire. We're like, mate, we've done our job. This is fantastic. That's probably in the broking space. The worst is transactional. The best brokers in the country understand not just broking, but they have a good grasp of everything to do with money.
Like wealth creation.
Yeah, they got to understand everything because it all intertwines with each other, right? And it's not that you're giving advice. You're just looking at options and you go, look, have you thought about all these things? Go see an accountant. Have you thought of all of these things? You might need to see a planner. So.
How do you think about wealth creation, Hung? If someone's starting out, do they go buy an owner occ first? Do they rent vest? Do they buy the commercial asset? Do they go negative gearing? Do they buy capital growth? Do they develop? What would be your psychology around it?
There's no fixed and fast formula, I guess, because depending on the market that you're in. So, for instance, if you're in a market that's growing, an owner occupier could be the best move, right? If you're in a stalemate market, you buy an owner occupier, you could be stalemate for the next 5 years. So you've got no ability to grow. If your market that you're in, it's too expensive, like Sydney, and you live, you want to live in a $2.5 million house and the rent's so much cheaper, can you outperform that with an investment property? So there's so many different formulas and not everyone's in the same path, and not everyone has the same resources as well. So depending on what they are, we can kind of tailor and look at, or think about this or think about that. And I usually think people a bunch of potties and go, hey, listen to these. I've listened to so many potties lately, so I know exactly who's got some gold or gold nuggets in each one. And then when they listen to that potty, and they're like, oh wow, okay, didn't think about that.
What do you think about rent vesting in terms of being able to offset that lifestyle option?
Yeah, look, I'm 100% in agreement with it. I'm obviously a refugee, migrant. I can't help myself but always want to have an owner occupier. If I'd done it differently, so if I look back at the times when I didn't, I could have rent vested or could have done things. I've always bought at a good time in Sydney, so for me it made sense. Mm-hmm. But if you're in a time where it doesn't make sense, then yeah, rent vest. Go buy something. Like if you had, let's say you bought something in Sydney let's call it 24 months ago, right? And it's done nothing. You literally have done absolutely nothing. You've wasted 24 months of your life because you needed to buy an owner occupier. If you had just kept renting, it was going to be cheaper. Mm-hmm. You would have saved that money. And let's just argue you bought a house in Townsville 2 years ago, right? You would have made 100% in 2 years in Townsville. You bought 2 houses in Townsville instead. 3 houses, 4 houses in Townsville then. You would have made 100% on, let's call it an average purchase price of maybe 300 or 400 grand, right? So,
Are you big then, Hung, on not necessarily speculating the market, but big on moving your cash to where the suburbs are about to tick, as opposed to buying blue chip and irrespective of where it is in the cycle, buying?
Yeah, I believe in both models in a sense, because if you're in a blue chip area, it's got to be a good deal and make sense. And then you got to manage your cash flow also. You can't just go and buy and assume that you're going to make money, right? If I went and bought, say, a house next door here somewhere, right, my yield's going to be like 2%. And I'm burning through land tax. I'm burning through interest. And then I need the property to grow or outperform that 100 grand burden every year. Yeah, and do I want to make that burden? And is that going to jeopardize my lifestyle? So there's so many parts of that when I could go, well, wait a second, I could go to a market that's about to grow or it's already growing. To give an example, maybe let's use Perth as an example. Your yields are still 5 to 5.5, even 6 in some places if you're lucky. And you can get a house, freestanding house with intrinsic value where it's a 4-bedder, double brick house. You can't even rebuild the house for 600 grand. You can buy a house for 600 and get 600 a week rent, right? And the market's been proven in the last 2 years, still growing at double digits. So like, which one's a better investment? Could I buy 4 of those instead of buying one house here and outperform that? It's, obviously there's no crystal ball to say which one's going to outperform, but I know which one I would rather do because it's easier for me and my lifestyle. I still want to drive nice cars and go on holidays and do all that stuff, right? But if I'm dropping 5 of these 100 grand burdens, that's $500,000 a year. Yeah.
And it's on the speculative hope that the cap growth outperforms the delta.
Oh yeah, 100%. And even, especially in Sydney, like how are we going to prove that we're going to go up another $1 million from now, right?
It's like, a lot.
It will at some point.
But when?
But when,
you
right?
Gotta keep topping.
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate of moving your money, moving markets.
Buy, sell.
I've sold probably 3 properties technically in my time because I had one that was 2 properties in one. I don't really often sell, but there are times when you do sell, you gotta make sure you're selling because it's going to give you an advantage elsewhere or allow you to
free servicing or
do something to allow you to move forward. Or if, for instance, that property that you bought has done its job, you might have bought it at 400-500 grand. It's now 1.3 million, but the yields are now down to like 2%. Could you sell for 1.3? Move that money. Let's use the perfect example again to get, or buy a Lambo, do a Sammy, and then buy a house as well, and get a 5%, get the same rent for 500 grand, right? So you might have been getting say $600 a week rent from that $1.3 million property. You shift $600 into a house that's giving you $600. You're getting that rent back anyway. And you bought a Lambo.
Strategic broker. That's why these guys need to talk to Hung. And so, how does your punter, outside of coming to yourself, how do people get access to? Is there a really good resource for people to find where markets, like outside of like the APS crew and whatever else, where does your average punter start to look for a market that's about to pop? Like, where do you actually find that information? Like, I'm in Canberra. I know Canberra inside out. I could buy heaps of good investments there, but I wouldn't know where to look in Sydney. Who do I call? Like, how do people start?
I would, if it was me starting all over again, the first place I would start is listening to as many podcasts as you can, right? So as you tune all of that data into your brain, you go down a rabbit hole. I do this with people all the time. Like they ask me, I used to explain. I spent so much time explaining things to people, and I realized that this is not what this is not value for my time, right? I realize other people are doing it already. I could just, it's not that, it's actually bringing business to them too. So if you pull a good podcast, I'll share it. Yep. I'll tell everyone to listen to it. So everyone that's doing the potties, I share a lot of Sam Gordon stuff. He's got some pretty good content, obviously. Yep. So whenever they listen to his stuff, and it triggers their brain. They go, oh, well, you think about trust? Listen to this one.
So just content. So
quality content, and then that will open your mind up to who to choose, right? Yep. Because what are they saying on those potties that resonates with you? Yep. You might not want to buy a regional property, for instance, right? And when these guys are buying regional, you want a metro property. Okay, well, these guys are buying metro. Yep. You know, I don't want to spend $1.5 million. These guys are buying 600. You know, so you're getting all of this information for free nowadays. Right? Yep. You can learn so much from just tuning into people, and then off the back end of it, making your own decisions and finding your team.
I think too, there's an age-old saying, which is like, don't invest in what you don't know. And as much as there are brokers, buyers, agents, accountants there to support, I think you still need to have your own level of sophistication to be able to at least understand the dialogue. What's an LVR? What's a trust? Like that type of stuff's really important. I think personally, anyone listening, don't just go to a professional, like still learn the basics.
Oh yeah, and even suss them out, right? Like, so one big part of what I recommend people to do all the time is, you know, if you are using somebody for a purpose, right, make sure that they're doing that same thing. So they've got skin in the game, right? So if I'm going to someone, a broker, to go, hey, I want to buy free investment properties, or have you bought free investment properties? You know, I find that so important, because why would you go to someone who hasn't done it themselves? They can't empathize. They're just you know, shooting blanks. And it was funny because my little brother, he was selling mortgages at the beginning when he started with me, and then when we finally got him a mortgage, he's like, oh man, I realized what the clients were feeling that whole time. And I was like, yeah, man, that is a very, very important lesson. Yeah. And then now he switched a whole different beast in him, because when he holds their hand through the process, he's like, oh yeah, I better touch with him here, you know, because because otherwise imagine sitting at home having anxiety for 5 days thinking about your cooling off period. Like, people don't think about it unless they can empathize.
Like, I got a 10 grand bill for one of my properties in repairs and maintenance, and like, unless you have that, then you can't. Like,
100%. I got termites everywhere.
Yeah,
I got so many termites.
Yeah.
Yeah, you raise a really good point. I think too about really, you know, there's a lot of financial advisors, let's say, right? And I use that term loosely, but financial advisors that maybe, you raised a really good point, Hung, before, where you said, you know, look, probably don't talk to a financial advisor if you've got 1 or 2 investments. It's like, just in terms of your portfolio size, it's probably too small to really get the value out of a proper financial advisor. But the financial advisors that are advising the mum or dad, I've found in my experience, that have maybe 1 investment or 2 investments, a lot of the time they don't even own property. You know,
very, very common.
And it is so common.
They're insurance salespeople. Yeah, that's what they are.
And I'd rather go to a weapon broker who's who's got 20 mil under his own belt, running a business, gets it, fucked up a lot. Yeah. Who's in the trenches, you know? Like, that was another thing we pulled from the convo with Sammy Gordon. It's like, don't take advice from people that haven't walked the path, really, because do they really know? It's like your staff member, you know, you with the bill. It's like, unless you felt the pain, you don't really get it.
You need to feel that pain. Like, I feel like every time it depends if you bounce back from the pain, right? So some people are built a certain way where they just keep bouncing back. I don't know. I feel like doesn't matter what you do to me, I'll figure out a way to get back up and, you know, go again. You just keep going until something works.
And they're the people that people like you. You're the type of person I listen to, and you're honest about when you make the mistakes too. I think a lot of advisors that you hear on many platforms, it's always perfect. You know, the guys that are willing to go, look, I fucked up over here. This is what you got to avoid. You know, that's probably the most valuable advice, because it's actually people sharing with you, like, where they've actually made mistakes. You know, I think that's where you really grow. What do you think are some of the key takeaways, mate, for the listeners in terms of this journey, like where you are? Like, give us a bit of a forecast on what's next for the firm, what's next for yourself, Yeah, and just a couple of key pieces of advice you give people that are at the start of this journey that you've walked.
Yeah, so I think tuning back to the point before is obviously educate yourself, ask a lot of questions, right? So that's probably your first key point. I've done a lot of dumb things in my early days where I didn't educate myself and just jumped in from trusting people. When you do trust people, obviously suss them out and really understand if they actually have skin in the game. I know I'm going to keep repeating that, but they were the two things. If I had done that prior to where I am today, I could tell you that portfolio would be a couple of $100 million if I had done it the right way. I had a couple of deals that cost me. It wasn't the fact that they cost me money. The opportunity cost of what they did. It didn't allow me to grow that portfolio much faster. It's only until the last maybe 5 years that I really figured out the Da Vinci Code. Yeah. So if I had taken those two piece or vital steps, I would be a million steps further.
That's great advice, man. Yeah. That's really good.
What about in the business sphere? What's some of the advice in business you could share?
I think in the business, the biggest one I actually learned over the years was the hiring side, which people find a lot of value in. Don't hire off a textbook. I'm sure a lot of people know this. Hire off the personality and I guess their inner traits, the inner core values. You can teach all the rest of the stuff. There's no issues there. That's what I've been basing, I guess, our business model on. It's pretty much good people. And probably ask yourself that question: do you want to work with this person? People, yeah. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, look on paper, this guy's a weapon. Yep. When you sit down and have a beer with him, and you're like, wait, yeah, don't really like him. Why would you want them being around you 24/7 every day? So,
that's great advice. It's almost, and you could almost flip that back to the individual. It's like, would I work for myself? Like, where do I need to improve?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we always got to improve. Sometimes I go a bit crazy because I just care too much about the outcome, and I'm like, why is everyone not just getting onto the client, fixing this stuff? And then I got to pull myself back a bit and go, look, you fired up, just cool down. People don't want to be told off. That's just the passion coming through, making sure that people are being serviced.
Business or property, which one do you go in first?
You got to do both. I mean, but it depends on your opportunity at the time. So if business presents first, you need income to buy property, right? You need income to pay any shortfall in the property. But if you can buy property and you can keep a buffer that will allow you to also do business, then for sure. If I could ask myself, back in those days when I had all that good income as a 19-year-old, what would I have done differently? I would have fucking bought property. Yeah. Would have bought a lot of property. Would have got myself educated. Would have found a broker who knew his shit. Would have went down the path of probably a buyer's agent who knew their shit. Would have found Daniel Beardall and go, hey man, where am I buying shit?
So everyone called Dan.
Yeah. So it would have been a path that would have been very, very different had I just done those extra steps at that age. Sydney property prices back then, oh man, you could bought anything, really.
I have to say, man, sitting in this beautiful home, and guys, if you can't see us, sitting in this absolutely stunning home at the moment, it's a material reward and marker for all of the hard work you guys have put into your lives. Where to from here? Because from where we're sitting right now, mate, you're sort of at the top of the mountain. What's next from here? Where do you go?
Look, I'll keep investing. I'll forever keep buying investments. That's never going to stop, really. I reckon, I don't know, I'll get to Sammy Gordon 200 or whatever he's going to get to 2 million. But I'll keep investing. I'll keep buying houses, keep following the Da Vinci Code that I said, because I'm practicing what I preach. I'm doing the same thing as the clients are doing. I'd probably get to 100 or something like that. I don't know if I'll stop. My daughter will take over at some point and start doing that, all of that. Occupier wise, I feel like I just want a bigger garage. So,
the house is pretty new.
I just need a bigger garage. I could live in a 1-bedroom apartment with a 50-car garage, and I'll be the happiest guy in the world.
Buy the block next door and knock it over and build a garage.
That's it.
And what about the firm? What's next for the brokerage?
I feel like the business, I have this really strong belief. I don't know what it is inside of me, but I feel like we could be the best brokerage in the country. Not for the fact of numbers or a numbers game, as a pure customer satisfaction game. The guys who have the biggest customer satisfaction out of all the brokerages. And that kind of will come out in numbers itself, whatever that looks like. I don't really care. I just care that we're going to service all these people and we're going to be known in the country as the best brokerage.
Can I steal that? Can I do that for Hive?
Yeah, you can take
Can
a
we have a
vibe.
satisfaction award?
I will, like,
That's unbelievable.
even Jeff, who works with Hung, is probably the best broker I've dealt with in terms of just speed, process.
Yeah.
He's just an absolute beast. Like,
Yeah.
just bang, 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 bang.
He's Mr. Accountability. So
Just bang.
the top brokers, there's different, I guess, levels of them, and I find that the really successful ones are the most accountable. So, Jeff's a living example of that. He will tell you, an update on every single update.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the best thing you could get as a client,
Just
right? Just getting an
information.
update. You
Yeah.
just want to need to know that,
Yeah.
what's happening, Because what a lot of brokers do is they win the business, you do all your paperwork, and then they ghost you. And you won't hear from them for like 3 months. You're like, what the hell happened to my deal?
100%. Same with agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
I'm curious, Hung. I know that Josh and I grew up without fathers. What's one thing you learnt growing up without a mother?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know if I could tell you something I learned because I never had a mother.
But what did you learn that helped you grow not having a mum?
I think I learned how to fend for myself. That's probably the biggest one. Because when I came home every day, Dad, no one was home. So I had to figure out exactly when my brother wasn't home, he was out being a bad kid as well. So I was literally feeding myself, learn how to cook, learn how to clean stuff, learn how to clothe myself, get myself to school every day. I think that created a lot of thick skin in me, which then eventually, I guess, translated to business skills, right? That, I could figure out how to do things on my own and not really rely on people. But then also that became a detriment because I didn't rely on people at some points when I should have sought professionals to help me at different stages or learn from them.
That's brilliant.
Any last questions?
Mate, I think I just want to say, I'm really inspired. I've got to be honest. I think
thanks,
that
mate.
conversation was really inspiring, and I think it's so genuine. And I think what's so inspiring, and I hope the listeners take away, is just that resilience piece. We talk a lot about just starting, but I'd probably give you a takeaway that I've got from this conversation. Might flip it back. Is just the want to genuinely help people. And I think that's an underlying fundamental in business, that people can chase the comms, they can chase the money, they can chase the big targets and all of the other stuff. But I think if you bring it back to just genuinely giving a shit and wanting to help whoever it is that's in your business, the business will take care of itself. And I think you're just a living, breathing example of that, man, and credit to you. It's really, really inspiring.
Yeah, mate, I would say what's pretty inspiring is how you've been curious enough to go from 300-400 grand back to an apprentice and push through that tradesmanship again to create what you've created. It's pretty inspiring, bro.
Yeah, and you've built the individual that's built the life, and I think it's inspiring, and everyone should tune in. Mate, thank you very much.
Thanks, gents. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Hung Chuy, mate.
Cheers.